Welcome back to another episode of the Real Deal Landman Show. Drew, I think by the time this episode comes out, the chaos will have subsided. But I have to ask, the snowstorm that hit, the Oklahoma City meteorologists always have like their names that they like to throw. Winter Mayhem or
Snowpocalypse.
Snowpocalypse. Yeah. Did they have a catchy name for this one?
We didn't have a catchy name for it, but it was constant on the news, as you can imagine, just 24, 48 hours before it ever even came in. And they were telling us the different waves that were going to come through and how bad it was going to get. And it was going to be 12 inches on the first round, and it was going to be 15 inches on the next round. Now, we got a lot less than that, but it was still almost as advertised, I'd say. So I think they did a pretty good job preparing everybody. What we still haven't got right, and I think it would be the Oklahoma people and the Texas people, I think we all can say the grocery stores get absolutely looted. I mean, looted about 24 hours before the storm hits, because people do not think that they can go 24, 48 hours with the kids inside without having every snack that's ever been produced on their shelf. I mean, it was madness. It was a madhouse, Jerris.
Well, and I love the obsession with bread and milk.
You got to have it.
I maybe have milk like twice a week and bread very rarely. It's not that I'm opposed to carbs or anything, but it's just hilarious how like those are the first things that go.
Those are the first thing. The meat counter, one of my buddies sent me a picture of the meat counter at like a Sam's or like a Crest, and it's completely sold out. There's not a rib, there's not a steak, there's nothing left except for one little deal and he put on his text, he was like, I guess everybody hates the top round, because it was just the top round beef and there was just nobody touching it. So people have limits, I guess. But yeah, people were all holed up inside, but I think Oklahoma City did pretty good in this one. So I don't know if it's going to be our last one for the year. It could be, but it was pretty intense, no lie.
Yeah. Well, for everybody out there that endured that storm, I'm sure everybody has their stories that they'll want to tell. But I mean, we genuinely hope everybody was safe and warm and well.
I think we survived with very few accidents compared to normal. It'll be interesting to talk to Ben about Texas and see if they had a little bit different. But I mean, up where you are, Colorado Springs, 10 inches is like a normal Thursday, right? But this year maybe a little bit off. It hasn't been very snowy, right?
This year's been really warm and dry. We were not supposed to get hardly any snow from this. We actually probably got 4 to 6 inches, but at this point during this winter, Oklahoma has had bigger snowstorms than what Colorado has had.
Wild.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Pretty nuts.
We are, I don't know, maybe that's our new thing, skiing. We'll see if we can put in a lift someplace. It just goes flat for 3 miles. We had it at the state fair, maybe.
Yeah. Just find a landfill. The landfills are the tallest peaks in Oklahoma. So you'll just have like a snowy landfill where you'll do your skiing. Well, nobody wants to hear us talk about the weather, Drew. I'm really excited. Okay, what?
Now you said you're excited, because we're bringing on a absolute software giant here of Ben Heinzelmann. I want to make sure I get that. Heinzelmann. And we're so excited to talk to him. Ben, we're so happy to have you here. And yes, we are excited to find out more about you. But one of the things, Jerris, that I was going to say, and I'm going to bring both of you guys into this, is we've kicked off the year. We're already probably going to different happy hours and different like events. They come on fast and furious right at the first of the year. And at one of the first ones I went to, I had somebody come up to me and they were like, okay, you guys have done this show for quite a while now. You are not reviewing the Landman show on Paramount at all anymore. We're not even hearing you mention it. And I said, well, that's because we're far too popular and our opinions matter on so much more in life than just talking about the show. But I kind of threw you under the bus too, because I like to avoid conflict. And I was like, well, Jerris didn't want to talk about it, obviously. And then I was like, I don't know how much time we're actually able to spend, because we have such busy schedules actually watching the show anymore. Ben, my first question to you is, do you watch the Landman show?
I do. I just finished season 2 a couple days ago.
Well, then this is going to be great for both of us, for everybody involved. Chris, because you are the host of the Real Deal Landman show, and obviously you would be watching the show all the time, as would I. we're going to do 10, or we'll only do 8. We're going to do 8 true or false questions about season 2 of The Landman. And we'll just see if, I don't know, we'll just see how it goes.
Wait,
I mean,
who are you asking the questions to?
You and Ben.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So the first one that I'm going to go with, Ben, this is for you. Angela, as we know, Angela, that's Tommy's wife. So Angela,
True. It's Tommy's wife. True.
Can we mute Jerris? Where's the mute button? Angela starts a dinner conversation that escalates into a full family argument in front of guests. True or false?
True.
I mean, obviously.
Every week.
That's a good true one. So let's go now, Jerris. Ainsley is asked to leave or change outfits at a professional or semi-professional event because of what she's wearing. And Ainsley, as you'll remember, Tommy's daughter, she now goes to TCU. I don't know if you knew that. But was she ever asked to change outfits at a professional or semi-professional event because of what she's wearing?
Yes, true.
It's false. She should be, but isn't formally removed. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one here. Ben, this is for you. MTex's board votes to replace Tommy, but the motion fails by a single vote.
False.
True or false? That is true. That is true from what I'm seeing here. Jerris, a private equity firm secretly funds an environmental lawsuit to weaken MTex before an acquisition.
False.
Correct. That's false. You are very well apt with the show here.
I am. Die hard.
Okay, couple more. Ben, Tommy is investigated by the SEC for trading ahead of a lease agreement.
False.
Correct. That is false. Jerris, Cooper successfully brings on multiple consecutive wells without any major operational failure.
Well, I'll say true.
That is true. He has,
and I even know it's 6.
It is 6, which, as we all know, very plausible. I mean, to do six wells in a row whenever you don't have any experience doing this. I mean, Cooper also is the driest character that's ever been on any show. And he drains the life out of the room. He has what the kids would call negative riz. Jerris, we'll just end this with you. The season ends with Tommy no longer officially working for MTex.
That is true.
That is true.
Yeah, I may not watch the show, but I do read Wikipedia. So I do feel like I'm somewhat up to speed.
I got to get to you before you do all that fancy reading.
Yeah. Yep.
But Ben, what do we think? Were you happy with the season finale?
I thought it was entertaining. As long as you look at it through the lens of not what an actual Landman does, and you just appreciate it for the entertainment content, that's provided, which there's obviously plenty of that. I can watch any show with Billy Bob in it, that's for sure. He kind of plays the same. It seems like he plays the same guy in just about every show, and it scratches my itch.
He plays the same, and I mean, the same can be said for Sam Elliott as well, right? Like Sam Elliott has had the same look for the past 40 years. I was talking to somebody here in the office about it, and they were like, yeah, you just throw him in, give him a script to anything, and the guy's going to be the exact same character in every single scene.
Well, and I love it because, Taylor Sheridan, which is not his real name, we went to high school here in Fort Worth. And so he does a pretty good job of highlighting, a lot of the local, any of the establishments, country clubs, bars, restaurants, that type of deal. So he does a really good job of highlighting the city, which is pretty cool.
Do you also I think Jerris and I really liked how you could drive in the show's time from Midland to Fort Worth I think it was around
30 minutes.
20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's how all of Texas
absolutely.
is. For anybody listening out there, you can get anywhere in Texas in 20 minutes.
I also like how Zoom has somehow not been invented in that show.
Like,
why are we driving from Midland to Fort Worth for a 5-minute meeting?
Tommy loves to drive.
The house that they live in, or that Tommy lives in, for some reason has these rolling green hills in the background, which I'm pretty confident is not Midland, Texas, as much as I love going to Midland.
I think you're right. I've also never seen and I don't know the financials of MTex, but I've never seen like a president or a CEO. He was the president, right?
Mm-hmm.
The president having to share a house with his lawyer and drilling engineer and family. Like I mean, I know he's a frugal man, of course, but to just be like, you know what, I am running this company, and everybody just come on. There's guest rooms enough for everybody. My wife is incredibly stable,
no doubt. Yeah,
so
that's a different deal. That's not what I'm used to seeing from large EMPs and how they treat their executive team.
how they work. Well, I think at the beginning, from what we had seen, and I mean, I'm doing exactly the opposite of what I actually planned, is talking way too much about the show. But at the beginning of the season, I had heard a lot of people were like, "This is falling off the deep end." At the end of the show, they were like, "Ah, it did pretty well," but from what I've heard, it's done well enough. They've already signed on at the beginning of season 2. They've already signed a season 3. They start shooting that, I think, in March or April, and
Hmm.
they are already saying that they'll do November of this next year will be the season 3 release.
I may or may not have Googled that after the season 2 finale, and I
Hey,
discovered the same.
got to see when it comes back for
I'm
sure.
all about it. I'm all
I
about it.
like it. I like it. So, Ben, we're glad to have you here. We want to find out more about you and kind of what makes you tick. So, just kind of starting off of what got you into like just living in Fort Worth? Was that where you're originally from?
I am.
So,
Yep.
living in Fort Worth, and was it originally seen the oil and gas industry, or did you have family in it, or what was the thing that kind of kicked it off of that's what you wanted to kind of do with your life?
Yeah, so kind of a cool story. My great great grandfather immigrated to Ellis Island. I actually share his namesake. My middle name is Matthias, or I guess pronounced Matthias Heinzelmann. That was my great great grandfather, and his son actually was put through Princeton from a wealthy uncle that he had. Once he graduated, his uncle, having all this money, heard about this crazy oil boom that was happening in the mid 20s. Out in West Texas, and so he was relocated to Scurry County. So he moved to Snyder, and where my grandfather was born, and my great grandfather was he was a wildcatter. He would was buying leases all over Scurry County, and I actually just inherited his like picture book where he's got this huge collage he put together of all these old press clippings of these wells they were drilling, and notes to his investors back in on Wall Street and whatnot. It was pretty awesome. So my granddad, Gary Heinzelman, was born in Snyder back in the 30s, and he obviously fell in love with the business as well, and ended up going to OU, which is the connection for me. And fortunately for him, he did a good job of indoctrinating me into this to the Sooner football lore back in the early 2000s when we were destroying everybody. So it was a good time to become a fan when I was in middle school. My dad graduated from TCU in the early mid '80s, and you can appreciate why he is not in the oil and gas business. But it's always piqued my interest. And what's funny is, I went to OU knowing that I wanted to do something in business. I did not want to stay in town. I can appreciate all my buddies that went to TCU and whatnot, but I went to a little private school here in town. My mom was a teacher there, and I just did not want to do high school all over again. I wanted a brand new, kind of a fresh start, get to meet a bunch of different people. I'm a pretty extroverted type of guy. And anyways, went to OU, and, wanted to get in business. Wasn't sure what that looked like. And I was in a fraternity up there, and several of my older fraternity brothers were getting these great internships, going down to Fort Worth, working for Devon and Chesapeake or Oklahoma City, and we're getting paid $30 an hour. And I was like, man, that sounds pretty good. And they had all declared for the energy management major, which traditionally was called petroleum land management. And had a great experience. I've figured out that it was a really great fit for my skill set, and the rest is history from there.
So you graduated from college, and what was the first job right out of college?
Well, so, I wanted to come back to Fort Worth. You talk to anybody that's from here, it's like a magnet. Like, you just can't come, you can't leave its aura, if you will. And so I wanted to come back here, and ideally, work in house as a landman at a larger EMP, whether, like I said, Chesapeake, Devon, whoever. Unfortunately, that was 2011. So you guys remember what happened to the Barnett Shale in 2010, 2011. I mean, it had
Oh yeah.
essentially cratered, so there were zero in-house land jobs at the time, and started working for a little broker for Chesapeake. They were one of Chesapeake's top brokers at the time. And my first task was helping round out some of these drilling units out by Jerry World in Arlington. And, as you can appreciate, the year prior, a lot of these mineral owners were being offered 16,000 an acre to lease their minerals. they sent me out as a 22-year-old to lease them at 1,000. So, and what's interesting about that is a lot of these people were not, avoiding leasing. It wasn't a pricing thing for most of them. It was more of a moral thing. It's a lot of the folks who were going to the city council meetings and protesting and whatnot. So I learned very quickly how to just, get kicked off of people's porches and get cussed at, and which was a great experience. Learning. I'm kind of used to. I'm a relatively agreeable guy. I feel like I'm decently well liked and all those things, but that was a huge kind of kick in the pants. Like, welcome to the corporate life. And yeah, that was kind of how it started, and ended up running some projects down in the Eaglebine area. We had an operator who was looking to get a foothold down in the Eaglebine, and ultimately, it was always my goal to get in-house. So I ended up working for a small family run operator out of Breckenridge, Texas, called PetX, which is owned by the McClyman family, and they're incredible people. And that's probably the most fun that I've ever had, actually being a landman, because it was truly like being a landman in the 50s or 60s. And I don't mean that in the sense that they weren't, trying to lean into technology or anything like that. It was that we were chasing this Tannehill channel sand out by Abilene. And it was a great experience, because it was, you get a circle on a map from a geologist, go do a lease check, index it out yourself, buy the leases, do the surface work. It was a ton of fun. And we drilled 7 straight dry holes. And it wasn't, I can promise you though, the title was clean. And it was a great experience, got to kind of see everything from cradle to grave. And ultimately, I was just, what I realized during that process is I'm not a details guy. I'm definitely kind of a 30,000-foot view, definitely more of a leasing landman, if you will, than a title guy. And that's when I met our founder, Ryan Vincent, who's also a landman by trade. So Ryan was managing the mineral management department at Bessemer Trust at the time, and he had just built a house here in Fort Worth and was commuting to Dallas every day, wearing a suit and all those things. And I picked up the phone one day and just cold called him, because half of the mineral estate that I was on, one of the prospects I was putting together, was managed by Bessemer. So I picked up the phone to call him to buy a lease, and we just hit it off. He kind of walked me through how he had just moved to Fort Worth, kind of a similar story. His wife was getting her fellowship in anesthesiology in Los Angeles, and just got a great job at Cook Children's out here in Fort Worth, which is one of the premier children's hospitals in the country, which is not a job you're going to turn down. And so he kind of ran into the same deal, ended up no in-house jobs, ends up, running the department at Bessemer. And we hit it off, and that was kind of the first story, if you will, on how I got involved in technology. So
It's
I've
amazing.
kind of, yeah. So
Hey,
happy to, like I said, happy to get into that.
man, I think that's fantastic. You were really thrown in the deep end, and I mean, especially within that Fort Worth. And so, whenever you were helping with Chesapeake leases, did we still have the Fort Worth Chesapeake building that was downtown in the old? Was it the
They
old Pier
did.
One building? Is that
They
right?
did. Yes,
What year did
absolutely.
that go away?
I want to
I
say
mean,
in
it was
2013, 2014, maybe 2015, somewhere in that range.
You were talking like 11. And yeah, I remember because I had come down for the grand opening whenever they just reopened that, and Chesapeake was talking about having every single floor there. And then I remember, you know, just because of the market and because of everything else that was going on, like it went from having, I don't remember what it was, having 15 floors to, okay, well, we're going down to 10, we're going down to 5. And yeah, it was cool while it lasted for sure. But what I really wanted to say is we had we had so many friends that were doing those brokers and going out and talking to people, just house to house. We've had people on the show talk about experience that they've had of having a shotgun fired over the the bow of the car basically. Did you ever have any people running you off the front porch, or did you ever have anything that was insanely memorable that
No, man, I wish. I don't have an amazing story like that. I did get called a liar several times because of how, Chesapeake would cut their checks, and it'd be a 30-day delay. I remember one time a lady came by the office. I brought her in, and her husband, and they, I guess, had a dental appointment that afternoon, and they were expecting me to cut them a check that day
yikes?
to potentially cover the dental appointment. And because I did not cut a check for them that day, apparently I was a liar and I'm a fraud and all those things. So that was kind of a gut check for me and very upsetting because I consider myself a pretty ethical guy and I minored in Spanish at OU. And so I was pretty close at the time to speaking fluently. I could at least understand it fluently. And we had to try to buy some leases in Spanish. That was a really interesting, that was an interesting exercise that I don't think went particularly well. I think that they would have been better suited actually hiring somebody that could really, really speak it and understand. Yeah, there were definitely some wild stories in there. Mostly people telling me just to go away.
If I remember anything, I had to go to Louisiana and the Barnett a little bit. Louisiana was pretty rough, but it made me always appreciate the. I mean, it's kind of like cold calling or something. You get hung up on, 99 times, but one time you get to talk to somebody that's actually, worth something. And
Mhm.
I bet that was kind of a similar experience for you of getting yelled at a ton, but it made the very few and far between strong connections that you could make, especially with the personality that you've got, that much more meaningful, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, more than anything, it's just kind of a gut check. Like, hey, this is real life. You have to learn. I mean, in business, you're not just going to be working with people that agree with you all the time, and you have to be pretty convincing that your position is best for them, or it's not right, and just be open about it. And ultimately, I feel like the universe has a way of paying those people back.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Jerris, I don't want to take all the time here.
Wow. You say you don't want to, but you always do.
It's true.
It
He's not
is.
lying.
It's so true. Yeah. So Ben, I definitely want to talk about the software side here in a minute, but do you still get to do some of that land work today? And if not, do you miss it, or are there pieces of it that you miss that you'd like to be able to do more of?
Yeah, so when we launched our first company back in 2014, which is called MineralWare, and I'm sure some of your listeners will be familiar with it. It's what I would consider one of the leading mineral and royalty management products in the space right now. And we started that with basically me and Ryan and a developer, and I think we had one other employee at the time, kind of a CTO type. And that was really fun because we actually started it as a mineral management company with this dinky software that was kind of running alongside it just to help differentiate us from the legacy brands. And there in the early days, I mean, we were in a 600 square foot office. I mean, we were negotiating leases for our software clients, so tying out their inventories, and so there was some kind of loose title work that I had to do there, and we were just kind of scratching and clawing to do whatever we could to keep the lights on. And after we sold Mineralware, we started Energy Domain, which is what I'm running now. And the first product we released, which is still obviously going today, is kind of the bell cow business for us, is our marketplace, where anybody in upstream can buy or sell minerals, non-op AFEs, operated, et cetera. And so that's kind of one arm of our business. So I'm still extremely active on that side as far as marketing deals. We have 30 employees now. Like I take a very hands-on approach with my clients that bring us deals. So I'm actively calling our buyers and actually working through the closing process with them and our team and our operations team. So I still get to scratch that itch a little bit, but the technology piece is definitely what I would consider is one of my callings and something that I've gravitated towards. I think I was always I was this really weird bird, like really, I've always been an athlete. Like I played every sport under the sun. Was a big soccer player growing up and kind of like had this jock element, but I was always this huge math science nerd. It's kind of hard to describe and was always like a big gamer, always loved technology. And so it really just spoke to me. And honestly, when I first got into it, I had kind of this sense of FOMO that all my buddies who were at larger E&Ps getting these huge salaries and, managing rig programs and all those things. And I kind of was wondering whether it was the right move for me or not. And I think as these land teams have been more consolidated, and these big land runs are kind of gone for the most part. Obviously, there are exceptions to that. It's made me appreciate even more kind of taking a step out because I think we can all agree. I mean, that's where this industry is going long term is the technology side, and ultimately data is kind of the new commodity.
Yeah. Today, what are all of the product or solution offerings that are underneath the energy domain umbrella?
Yeah, so I'll back up for a second too and just provide some context. So, we were building MineralWare out, which is our first business. Surprisingly enough, there really wasn't a product that was solely focused on mineral and royalty management. There were plenty of ERP solutions that were focused on the E&P side of the industry, but it's a different asset class entirely, as you guys know. And so we started building MineralWare solely to kind of help the smaller, mom and pops, family offices manage what they've inherited. A lot of these folks like weren't in the industry, and frankly, I'd never even seen on a map where their assets were located. Obviously, with that, we had to figure out how we bring in well header data and production into the application. And so we started doing that very, very slowly, state by state. Basically, a lot of the same processes that the drilling info went through, 20, 25 years ago to aggregate and normalize well header and production across state lines. And we did that over a 6-year period and moved up market and ended up going from just helping legacy owners to, these private equity backed aggregating companies, large nonprofits, that sort of thing. And we launched Energy Domain initially in 2021, focused on the marketplace side. And that was that was a really nice way for us to enter the market, build brand awareness, obviously generate some revenue on these transaction fees and that sort of thing. But ultimately, the end goal for us was to take the data that we had aggregated. We were building Mineralware and apply that to a true competitor to a drilling info, IHS, any of these legacy data providers that have been in the space for some time now. And we had a huge leg up because we spent 6 or 7 years developing this kind of data moat. I mean, it's not like you just go to the Railroad Commission and download a CSV and off you go. I mean, there are so much more to it that a lot of people just don't appreciate. This is not a deal where you can just build a browser bot to go in and pull what you need. It takes a lot of understanding how the space works, well statuses, all those things. And so 2.5 years ago, we started building our second product, which is Energy Domain Data.
Like, tell us about what
Yeah.
energy
So
domain data
yeah.
is.
So basically, Energy Domain it's an oil and gas technology company. We have two products. We have Energy Domain Marketplace, and we have Energy Domain Data. As you can appreciate, with the marketplace coming out so much, so much more in advance of the data product, we ended up now we have about 9,000 logins on the marketplace, and every single one of these people that buy and sell assets have a need for some type of data provider for well header production to actually underwrite the assets, that sort of thing. And so we knew we needed to lean in and really curate the data set. So like we didn't have landing zones, we didn't have rig data, we didn't have directional surveys, being able to export production and pull it into PH2N or combo curve areas, like any of those engineering solutions. So we had to lean in really hard to those features. And it was really just, my experience. So I ran sales solo for Mineralware for 6 years. So as y'all can appreciate, I mean, it was a grind. I mean, I was going to Midland, Houston, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Fort Worth, wherever, giving demos of the product. And I would start painting around on the map and people would stop me and say, "Hey, cool product. Can we just pay you for a map of the well data and the permits and simple filtering?" Because even 10 years ago, I think drilling info and some of the other products started to become pretty prohibitively expensive and people were looking for an alternative. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment for us. And we started to curate the data sets and build out Energy Domain Data. So you have Energy Domain Marketplace and Energy Domain Data, which we just launched literally a year ago today. So that's the 1 year anniversary of the data product. But the what we really wanted to provide, and I think this will be in particularly interesting to your listeners, is a lot of optionality on the subscriptions. So instead of forcing users to subscribe to nationwide data and all these bells and whistles they don't need, we provide a lot of optionality around how you can subscribe. So you can literally subscribe by county, you can subscribe by basin. There is a nationwide account. You can do monthly, annually. So there's a lot of optionality there. And so now, I mean, you have the product. I'm incredibly proud of the product and I stand behind the quality of the data. I mean, it is right there next to any of them at this point in time. One of the things, this kind of ties into being a landman. I mean, there are plenty of products I think out there that are kind of well data focused. We wanted to be there at the intersection of land and the well side. I think ultimately that's always what's been really interesting to me. And that kind of is where like the courthouse data intersects with all of this. Frankly, I didn't really know how we were going to go about doing that. I know, Jerris, you have some experience with this to a degree, but it is a very capital intensive process, time intensive process to bring in all of these courthouse records from every county. And I didn't know how we were going to do that. Frankly, I thought, we would just partner with a group to do this that already had some of the legacy data, and we could just kind of build some tools on top of it. A really fortuitous set of events. So we brought on Jason Smith last year, who was kind of one of the main drivers behind building Texas File over a 23-year period. And he had started a new company called clerkrecords.com. And fundamentally, I mean, Clerk Records is an AI first courthouse product. And he saw some of the content, we were pushing out on energy domain data and saw the natural synergies there. And ultimately, we made the decision to acquire Clerk Records and Jason's personal IP. So he's on our team building out our courthouse product, which we're calling Title Lab, and that will be released for the Permian Basin at the end of Q1. And it's pretty exciting. I mean, we will be the first. Maybe I'm saying more than I should, but we'll be the first group that is programmatically running every document through a large language model. So we are extracting 2 or 3 times the amount of attributes that's available in the space right now. And it's very, very exciting. I think the timing could not have worked out better from, as far as us wanting to release a product like this and what these models can actually achieve. Up until recently, you'd get a lot of hallucinations and a lot of noise and all that. And I'm obviously certainly not the one that is building that. I understand what the end users want and what the landmen are actually looking for, and these operational teams are looking for. And so I can kind of loosely guide our much smarter people on my team as far as how we build this out. But just in 6 months, we've been able to aggregate 208 counties in Texas. So that product will blend in directly with energy domain data, and it will be kind of a wholesale, like an all-encompassing solution.
That's amazing. That's really good. And that's already out, or that's coming out here in just the next few months?
It's coming out for the Permian at the end of Q1. That's at least our goal. And I'm sure if my VP of product listens to this, he'll be sending me some mean text messages. But that's the goal. And we've already run 10 full counties through the model. So effectively, we're programmatically building abstract plans is what we're doing right now. And that will be delivered. Fortunately now is, being able to leverage these models to build UIs, like it's a complete game changer. If we were to build, a new UI from scratch 3 years ago, that's at least a 6-month ordeal, even with a full team. And we should have our new UI out and within the next, I'd guess 30 days or so. And so it's pretty incredible. I mean, we are truly, like, again, we're younger guys, like we're always looking at ways to leverage this new technology to make us more operationally efficient. And ultimately that's what allows us to save our customers a lot of money at the end of the day, because we don't have all this crazy CapEx sunk into everything that we're building that we need to recoup through subscriptions.
That's amazing.
Do you see the build out of the records going beyond the state of Texas?
That's actually a lot of internal conversations around that recently. We may be raising some more capital later this year. That's still kind of to be determined. But yes, that is absolutely the goal. We want to kind of prove out Texas first. There's been a lot of, we've been in the lab, if you will, for lack of a better way of saying it. Prove that out. And then, yes, I mean, the goal is to move into some of the other states. And fortunately, if you get Texas right, I mean, it's not as if we need to triple the county coverage. I mean, a lot of these other counties might have 10, 20 counties. Obviously you have Uinta, that's just a handful. The Williston's kind of the same ways. That's our plan. And now how far we go beyond that, is definitely to be determined. But the beauty of how we're doing this is we're not just capturing the oil and gas documents. So we will stand up Clerk Records on the side. That likely will just be, our Title Lab website, if you will. And anybody in the real estate, business, mortgage, whatever, can also go and purchase these instruments on like a per document basis if they don't have, a use for the actual energy domain data product, like the upstream product.
Let me ask you, when did MineralWare, when did that originally come out?
We launched that in like November of 2014. And when I say launched, it's big time air quotes. I mean, it was a really half-assed product, for lack of a better way of saying it, pardon my French, but it was good enough. It was literally you could put some polygons on a map. We had some surface locations of the wells, and you could drag leases and deeds into the maps. I mean, there was nothing beyond that. There was not, a revenue tool to help you get, make heads or tails of your revenue statements or your jibs or anything like that. Ended up building that in. But yeah, I mean, MineralWare was out 2014. Really, 2015 was the big kind of first full year we started onboarding customers. And then we sold MineralWare in April of 2022. So we were at it just about 7 years.
I mean, that's what I was getting ready to say, of just in a 7-year span. And I know from from my days in the land software space, when we were looking at everybody else, like we could see you guys were building up, compliments to you and the rest of like whoever was working kind of sales and being able to kind of get the word out. But MineralWare went nuts in that time span. So that's fantastic. What did
I
you
appreciate it.
what would you say that you learned from your first venture into software that you were able to roll into energy domain and like the data and everything like that of to make that successful so quickly in that 7-year span? What have you been able to put with this kind of to get that momentum going again?
Well, I would say a number of things. When you're going in to meet, and I'll speak specifically on mineralware, but when you go meet with these family offices or these mineral shops, what you have to appreciate is they're always going to bring in somebody that is doing the job that you are going to potentially replace. It's not even really replace. It takes a lot of convincing. You have to understand, like you have to sort of reframe the conversation to, hey, this is not replacing you. This is going to make your job that much easier, right? And unfortunately, that's not always where the conversation went. Typically, you'd have those people pushing back, and they're the ones that have the ear of the decision maker, right? So that was a huge, I think, skill set that I think anybody in sales on the software side really has to learn. And so I feel like I was able to do that pretty well, and just kind of approaching it more from a collaborative standpoint than, hey, this is going to replace everything you're doing. I think also it's talking with the right people, because I know, Drew, you've been on the software side as well. Like, you get in these positions where you get interested parties who want to take a look at your product, and there could be some really big time wasters. There's a lot of guys who are just kind of kicking tires, and they're not serious buyers. And so really fleshing those people out and understanding, like, who are the true decision makers, and whose jobs are actually going to be positively impacted, by leveraging some of our solutions. I'd say that's kind of the two biggest keys that I've learned.
Pretty good. I always knew that if we were working with like the smaller groups looking for land software, 100% of the time, and I mean you can appreciate of the land software that every company used right off the bat whenever they were starting up was Excel. And so we were battling the
Yeah.
quote unquote free program of Excel and trying to sell something that they were going to have to pay on a monthly or a yearly subscription plan. And so you have to get really creative. And it sounds like, I mean, with what you guys were doing on kind of those smaller home office groups, I mean, to be able to have the success rate that you did, that definitely is saying something.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think one of the biggest lessons we learned too is, we wanted to own as much of the data as we could instead of just building tools. And we learned that the hard way, because, a lot of our revenue data was owned by EnergyLink or Jerris or Oldex. And I mean, it's gone through obviously multiple iterations since then. And so we kind of did some introspection before we started Energy Domain. We said, okay, we're going to build this data product. Are there any pieces that we're missing here? Because ultimately, it's our goal. I mean, it's entirely conceivable that we run this thing forever, but I mean, ultimately, our goal is to turn around and sell this business in the next few years. And so, what can we do to strategically position ourselves to be attractive? And ultimately, that came down to owning as much of the data as we could. And some of the missing pieces would be, I'd say, the two biggest components is rig data. Obviously the frac fleets and that sort of thing, and courthouse records, right? So kind of a fortuitous set of events on the rig data side. There was some data we were licensing into MineralWare, and this is owned by Westwood Global. They're pretty analogous to like a Wood Mackenzie, big international data conglomerate. They've got all the, track offshore rigs and pipelines in the Middle East, like that sort of thing. And they realized after they spent all this money on this lower 48 rig data product, that it really didn't fit their customer base very well, because their customer base were, these international investors. And so we were in conversations with them on licensing the data. But ultimately that didn't fit. They weren't really that interested in growing the business long term. And that fit perfectly into what we were trying to build. And so we ended up acquiring that arm of the business from them back in January of 2024. Definitely checked one of like the first boxes for us. And then now obviously we're getting into the courthouse space. So that's the constant battle is, how can we retain ownership of this data moat, if that makes sense? For better or for worse, that's how we're looking at it.
Ben, what do customers or potential customers, let's say potential, what do potential customers assume about energy domain that they get wrong? So, for example, they may think that it's only for big companies, or it's only for little companies, or it only does this, or it only does that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. That's a great question. One of them, as you can appreciate, we've had to do some educating to folks that we do have a data product that competes directly with Enverus and IHS, any of the legacy data providers. I think most people, when they hear the name Energy Domain, they just think marketplace. And so it's actually kind of interesting. When we're coming out with the data products, we're thinking like, do we name this something like something different? And we're kind of sitting in a boardroom. We're like, well, why would we? We've poured all these blood, sweat, and tears into educating people about our brand. Why would we build something that we just have to re-educate people on? And so we basically just made the marketplace a product underneath the Energy Domain umbrella, and the same applies to Energy Domain data. Right? It's just another product line that we offer. So I'd say that's one of the first things that I think people get incorrect is that it's not just a marketplace. We also have a data product, and then I'd say further, so it's kind of twofold. On the marketplace, people assume we just do smaller transactions. We actually have an investment banking arm that we bolted on to handle like the $5 to $50 million deals,
Nice.
where we do full underwriting, create data rooms and PHP1 databases and all those things. And I'd say on the data side, you kind of hit the nail on the head as far as I think a lot of these people think that when we push this out, it's just for the SMB accounts and like these small customers. It is an enterprise grade product now. I mean, we have, as I mentioned, all the directional surveys are digitized, landing zones. We've got a custom API that we built. So I'd say that those are kind of the big elements that I think are just kind of misunderstood. And it takes a lot of demos and marketing and all those things. Fortunately, we just hired a director of marketing who started a couple months ago, Braxton Huggins, who's going to do a great job at pushing out the content just to educate everybody.
That's awesome. That's very cool. You kind of touched on it briefly too. The one thing that I was going to mention is we see so many companies today, and like, I mean, every board of directors and every C-suite from 2025 to 2026 always talks about how their plan is, how do we incorporate AI into our next, like the next iteration of the company. Are you seeing that too, as whenever you're out and talking to people, and that's one of the reasons why you guys have put so much focus on this?
Yeah, I'd say so. There's no doubt. I mean, I was on a call this morning with a larger company who, I mean, that's one of their biggest initiatives right now is to figure out. I think though that it comes down to what do people mean by AI? And I think most people in the space think, it's this kind of sexy agentic, chatbot, right? Ultimately, though, where the power of AI really lies is not trying to build new models. Nobody is going to build better models than Google or Gemini, or Google or OpenAI or any of these other huge data models. And so, building solutions that can be model agnostic, I think is the absolute way to go because as you guys know, and I'm sure Jerris, you saw this, but the models, I mean, every 3 months there's some new iteration that comes out that can do things better, right? Setting up pipelines that can immediately switch and leverage these new models, I think is going to be pivotal moving forward. But yeah, no question. I mean, every company we talk to, from the majors to the smaller independents to the small mineral buyers, I mean, it is very common right now in conversations.
It's such a buzzword, but it's also one of the things that when utilized right, it can save these companies so much money.
No doubt about it. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we're using it more operationally, right? So an example would be like the directional surveys. I mean, if we were to manually process every directional survey, that would cost us between $2 and $5 million to do that. That would be cost prohibitive for our little company. So we ended up partnering with a AI first, data extraction company that ended up overlaying models on top of the survey company's templates. And we built them that way for like under $80,000 total.
It's
So
awesome.
those are like the little things that we're doing just operationally. Also, our developers. I mean, our developers are not writing code manually hardly anymore. It's a lot of just QC, right? We're using Cursor and some of the other products to do most of the heavy lifting.
Very
That's
nice.
fantastic.
We talked a little bit even before the cameras and everything were rolling of getting out and being able to put a product in front of people. And so the next big thing for the industry is at the NAPE convention. And so I would assume that people are going to be able to find you guys there, right?
Yes, we will. And I wish I had our booth number in front of me, but it's very easy to get on their app and look it up. And we'll have a much bigger booth this year, as you and I talked about. We had this kind of just little sheepish $500 booth last year, but we'll have a much bigger. We're taking like a small army down there this year, so look forward to seeing everybody down there. Please stop by and say hello. Love to walk you through what we're building.
So we see the people coming to NAPE that like you've said, like Jerris and I have said, we see all of our friends down there. We see people that we've known for 10, 20 years in the industry. What would you say to the people that are going there for the first time? Like, we've got a lot of students. So you've been in this quite a while now, with MineralWare, with working for Chesapeake and some of these other groups of going out and doing kind of the upstream side. For people that are just getting into the business, or maybe wanting to, like, they hear this and they think that software and AI and being able to go to these different things is sexy. What would you say for somebody that's kind of getting into the energy field in 2026?
Yeah, I would just say that don't get your sights set only on being an in-house landman, and whether you get that role or not is sort of what dictates, whether you have success or not. The landscape has changed so dramatically. I mean, there are so many companies now that can use, ourselves included, can use somebody that understands the land side, but also somebody that really understands technology and leans into it to not only better their careers, but also better our companies long term. So really encourage them to lean into technology and really understand how these products work and how they can build solutions outside of just going to chat GPT and using it like Google, right? There are so many other applications and companies that could use somebody that has a land background. I would say also, it looks like the more that I kind of survey the landscape, I mean, this whole data center stuff is becoming incredibly interesting, and it's this kind of eye-rolling buzzword that everybody uses now, AI and data centers, but that really is kind of the next landscape. Again, I encourage several of the students, younger folks, to really lean into that as well and do their research.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I looked it up for you, Ben. The booth number of Energy Domain is 2415. And you guys
Thank
have
you,
a great
Jerris.
location. So as people walk in, they ought to be able to find 2415 pretty easily. Now, what they're going to want to do is that once they hit booth 2415, they're going to want to swing over several aisles to go to 1615.
Ooh.
And at 1615, you will find the premier booth of the NAPE. I was going to say the
Well, I've
NAPE
heard.
Expo, but that's like saying Expo. It's like saying ATM machine.
Right.
You're going to find the premier booth of NAPE, which is the booth of the Real Deal Landman show. And Drew is going to have all kinds of bribes for people to come and visit with us and check us out. And last year, we got some complaints that people kept walking by to see us and we were never there. I think that's going to change this year. I think at least one of us will be there hanging out.
We honestly thought that that's what the people wanted, that they did not want did not want to see us, and we were trying to please. But yeah, we're really excited. This is the second year that we get to come out to this. Have been there for under the Chesapeake badge, the software badge, and now the podcast badge, and we really enjoy being able to spend time with everybody. Please go by and see and his booth too. Like, I mean, they are. Absolutely. It's in the prime locations that you need to be stopping by and seeing. Come see us if you get bored with the rest of it. So, which is almost impossible at NAPE.
And I'll say that we actually have a schedule. We're becoming legitimate. We have a schedule this year. So there will be somebody at the booth at all times. So we're getting dialed in over here.
You guys are big time now.
Yeah.
Jerris, are you gonna put together a schedule for us?
Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah,
I would get right on that.
Yeah, I will get right on that. Drew, I would make sure you've got a comfy chair and some comfy shoes. You're going to be spending some time there.
Boy,
I will be wearing tennis shoes. I can promise you that. I've talked about NAPE lessons learned. I do not wear leather bottom shoes anymore.
Nope.
The first year I went, I did cowboy boots because I thought that was going to be the cool thing to do, and it was the biggest mistake of my life.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I've learned my lesson.
Yep.
So bad.
With the exception of the ponytail, I now look like the old prospecting geologist at NAPE, and I'm totally comfortable with that.
Totally good with that. It could be worse. Well,
Ben, for those who are not going to be able to make it to the show, what is the best way for them to be able to check out your product?
Yeah, so I am obnoxiously accessible. You can find me on LinkedIn. Also, I encourage anybody, if you go to our website, it is so simple, it's crazy. If you go to energydomain.com, there is a button that says free trial, and you can test any basin for 7 days. You just can't, export anything. Just people don't export all of our data for obvious reasons. But yeah, I encourage you guys to check it out and reach out to me if you'd like a personal demo. And look forward to continuing the conversation with some of you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your hectic schedule and amidst the weather and everything else to hang out with us. It's been fantastic getting to know your story and also being able to get to know Energy Domain and the products and offerings that you guys have. Really appreciate you and taking that time with us.
Yeah.
Drew, any final words from you?
And no final words. We hope to see you all at just anywhere else that you can get a hold of Jerris, myself, Ben. Ben, as Jerris said, absolute pleasure to meet you and be able to talk to you today. So we look forward to seeing you down at NAPE next month.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Great meeting you guys. Look forward to meeting in person.
Definitely. For Ben, for Jerris, for Drew, this has been another episode of The Real Deal Landman. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.